She handed 4 strangers an unlimited credit card and told them to spend whatever they wanted. No limits, no rules, no questions asked. Her name was Margaret Holloway, one of the most powerful women in America, a billionaire who had stood in rooms with presidents, rebuilt companies from the ashes, and never, not once in 68 years on this earth, allowed herself to be caught off guard by a human being until the day she met James Carter. 3 of the 4 men she chose that morning went straight for the money. Fast cars, penthouse suites, designer watches, whatever made them feel, even for 48 hours, like the version of themselves they had always dreamed of becoming. But one man, one quiet, exhausted man in a slightly too large blue shirt, with worn-out shoes, and a little girl waiting at home, he did something that made Margaret Holloway, a woman who had not cried in public since her mother's funeral, press her fingers to her mouth and turn away from the room. Welcome back. If this is your first time here, I need you to stay with me until the very last word, because what this single father did with that credit card is going to stay with you for the rest of your life. I am not saying that to keep you watching. I am saying it because in 20 years of telling stories, I have never once told this one before. And I almost did not tell it now, because some stories feel too real, too sacred to put into words. But James deserves to be seen. And so does his little girl. So let us begin. By the time this video ends, you are going to understand exactly why this billionaire, a woman who has seen every version of wealth and power that exists in this country, was the one left completely speechless. Not by luxury, not by strategy, but by one single purchase from a man who had almost nothing left to give. If you have ever put someone else first when nobody was watching, if you have ever swallowed your own pain so that someone you love would not have to feel it, this story is for you. Now, let us take you back to where it all began. Margaret Holloway was 68 years old. She had built one of the largest private investment firms in the country, starting from a cramped 1-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio, with a $500 loan from a credit union and a dream that almost everyone in her life told her to abandon. Her father had told her, at the kitchen table of the house she grew up in, that women did not run companies. Her first boss had told her she was too emotional for finance. 2 investors in her first year had laughed her out of their offices. She proved every single one of them wrong. But she never forgot what it felt like to be dismissed, to be overlooked, to sit across a table from someone who had already decided, before you opened your mouth, that you did not belong there. That experience had never left her. And every year, quietly, with no press coverage and no public announcement, Margaret did something unusual. She called it her character test. 4 ordinary men. Completely different backgrounds. Each handed one unlimited black credit card. 48 hours. 0 restrictions. No one watching, or so they believed, not what they bought. But why? This year's 4 men were Derek, 34 years old, sales manager, the kind of man who walks into a room and immediately adjusts its volume to match his own. The moment Margaret finished explaining the card, Derek was already searching Porsche dealerships on his phone. Marcus, 41, real estate agent, practical, calculating. A man who approached every situation like a transaction waiting to be optimized. He had produced a yellow legal pad and was already writing a list before she finished her second sentence. Troy, 29, social media influencer. 200,000 followers, a young man who had learned to experience almost nothing without first considering whether it would photograph well. He was already mentally composing thumbnails, and then James Carter. 44 years old, school janitor, a small town in rural Georgia. He arrived that morning in a freshly ironed blue shirt that was slightly too large for him. The kind of too large that tells you a man has lost weight recently, and not on purpose. His handshake was firm. His voice was steady, but his eyes looked like a man who had not slept properly in a very long time. When Margaret handed him the black card, the other 3 men grabbed theirs with barely concealed excitement. James held his quietly, turned it over once, twice, and then, so softly that you would have missed it if you were not paying attention, he whispered something to himself. Not to anyone in the room, just to himself. Nobody caught it, except Margaret. She always did. Before she dismissed them, she held his gaze for just a half-second longer than the others. She had a quiet rule, one she had never broken in all the years she had run this test. Always include one person the world had already decided to overlook. One person carrying something invisible. One person who had been holding everything together alone, in the dark, with no applause and no audience. This year, that person was James Carter. "Gentlemen," she said, looking at all four of them. "You have 48 hours. The card carries no limit. No receipts required. No one will question a single purchase. Spend however you wish, on anything, anyone, anywhere. The only instruction I give you is this. Spend in a way that reflects who you truly are." Derek grinned. Marcus clicked his pen. Troy hit record on his phone. James folded his hands in his lap and said nothing. The clock started. 4 men, 1 card each, 48 hours. And what came next revealed everything. The first 12 hours looked exactly like you would expect. Derek was at a Porsche dealership by 9 in the morning. He FaceTimed his friends from the showroom floor, spinning slowly in circles like a man who had just discovered gravity did not apply to him anymore. By noon, he had booked a penthouse suite in Miami for the coming weekend. By 2 o'clock, he had custom-ordered a watch from a Manhattan boutique. By the time the first day ended, Derek had charged well over $230,000 to the card. And he was already planning how to spend the second day. Marcus was more methodical. First thing he did was pay off his mortgage. Reasonable, honestly. Then he moved immediately into property, a luxury mountain cabin in the Smoky Mountains listed at $180,000. Smart. Controlled. Entirely for himself. Troy live-streamed everything. Designer clothes. A first-class flight to New York for a single dinner. He posted all of it with the caption, "Living my best life, just a regular guy for one day." His follower count jumped by 40,000 overnight. He called it, "Raising awareness about wealth inequality." He seemed to genuinely mean it. And James? James drove his 2009 Honda Civic quietly to the other side of town. Margaret's, 2 discreet observers, one of whom had been doing this job for 11 years and had watched dozens of men spend other people's money, followed him at a careful distance. They watched him pull into the parking lot of a small elementary school, sit in his car for 3 minutes, reach into the inside pocket of his jacket, take out a photograph, look at it, then fold it carefully, put it back, and go inside. That photograph, her name was Lily, 9 years old. Gap-toothed smile, 2 lopsided pigtails. In the photo, she was holding up a drawing she had made with crayons. 2 figures, one tall and one small, standing side by side. At the bottom of the drawing, in careful, crooked handwriting, she had written 4 words. "Me and Daddy. My hero." For the past 2 years, ever since her mother lost her battle with cancer at 41 years old, right at the start of spring, when Lily was just 7, it had been just the 2 of them. James working double shifts at the very same school where Lily was a 3rd-grade student, showing up every morning before the halls filled, mopping floors, fixing things, making sure every corner of the building was ready for the children who arrived there, including his own daughter, who would pass him in the hallway sometimes and wave and keep walking, because she was old enough now to understand that Daddy was working, and working men do not stop for hugs in the middle of the day. James had not cried in front of another human being since the funeral. He had decided, alone, in a quiet moment he never told anyone about, that Lily would not grow up watching her father fall apart. She had already lost enough. Now stay with me right here. Because what James does in the next 36 hours is the part that nobody in that building saw coming. Not Margaret, not her observers, not even James fully in the moment he was doing it. But when you hear it, you will want to stop this video, pick up your phone, and call someone you love. I promise you that. Stay with me." James walked into the school office, spoke to the front desk administrator. The observers watched through the glass as the woman's expression shifted from polite professionalism to quiet surprise, and then to something that looked unmistakably like relief. James settled Lily's full tuition and school fees for the next 3 years. He did not leave his name. He asked that no announcement be made. Then he sat down with Lily's homeroom teacher and the school counselor and asked them one question: which families in this school are having the hardest time right now? The counselor looked at him for a long moment. And then she told him. James left the school and drove. First stop, Ruth Simmons, 74 years old, Lily's neighbor, a widow who had been stretching her Social Security check across both her groceries and her heart medication for so long that she had quietly started skipping doses to make sure there was food in the house. James knocked on her door, introduced himself as a friend of her neighbor's, spent nearly 2 hours sitting at her kitchen table, listening. By the time he left, Ruth's pantry was fully stocked. Her heating bill was paid through March, and there was a brand new recliner by the window, because the spring on the old one had been broken for 8 months, and Ruth had been pretending she didn't notice. He found a single mother 3 streets over. Her name was Carla, whose car engine had seized 2 weeks earlier. She had been loading her 3 children, ages 4 through 9, into a stroller and a wagon every morning and walking them to school through the cold. James bought her a used 4-door sedan. Practical, reliable, safe. Nothing fancy. Just something that worked, because working was all she needed. He paid overdue rent for 4 families on the counselor's list. He restocked the food pantry at the local community church, the one with the hand-painted sign out front that said, "All are welcome," in fading blue letters. He bought 42 winter coats, one for every child in the district that the teachers had flagged as arriving cold every single morning. He covered 3 months of unpaid utilities for 6 elderly residents on Ruth Street. He arranged and prepaid for a home health aide to visit an 80-year-old man named Vernon, a Korean War veteran who had not left his house since his wife of 53 years passed away the previous winter, and who had told his doctor the last time he saw him that he had stopped cooking because cooking for one doesn't feel like cooking anymore. 17 families. One by one, all in under 36 hours, all without leaving his name. And then, at the very end of the second day, with less than 4 hours left on the clock, James walked into a small music shop on the corner of 5th Street. He stood there for nearly 40 minutes. He picked something up, put it back, walked around the shop, came back to it, picked it up again, set it down once more, and then, the second time he reached for it, he did not put it back. He carried it to the register. The young woman behind the counter had been watching him the entire time. She did not know who he was. She did not know what he had spent the past day and a half doing. She only knew that this quiet man in a slightly too large blue shirt had been standing in her store for almost an hour, clearly wrestling with something. And when he finally placed it on the counter in front of her, she felt tears running down her face. And she could not have told you exactly why. She asked him, "Is this for someone special?" James looked at her. "She doesn't know it yet," he said. "But yes, total spent $47,000. The other 3 men had spent a combined $810,000. What James bought, and the reason he bought it, is exactly why Margaret Holloway did not sleep that night. The 48 hours ended on a Thursday morning. Margaret had arranged for all 4 men to return to the same conference room. Her assistant had prepared a complete summary of every transaction, every charge, every location, every amount, logged in full. Derek arrived first. Still buzzing, the new watch gleamed on his wrist. He had spent $340,000, mostly on himself, with a few generous tips scattered in like punctuation marks. The kind of generosity that appears only after a person is already completely satisfied. Marcus walked in with a printed spreadsheet. Literally printed and spiral-bound. He had spent $280,000, primarily in property. Strategic, he told Margaret with the settled confidence of a man who has never once doubted his own reasoning. Smart money. Troy handed Margaret his phone so she could see his analytics. His following had jumped by 60,000. I used the platform to raise awareness about wealth inequality, he said, with what appeared to be genuine sincerity. He had spent $190,000 on content, on his brand, on the version of himself that the internet had decided it loved, and then James walked in. Same blue shirt, same worn shoes. He sat down at the far end of the table, folded his hands, and waited. Margaret's assistant slid the spending report in front of her. She had already read it 3 times the night before. Once at her desk, once in the car on the way home, and once sitting alone at her kitchen table at 2 a.m, reading by lamplight because she could not sleep. She set it face down, removed her reading glasses, and looked at James. "Mr. Carter," she said, "you spent $47,000. Derek pressed his lips together to suppress a smile. Marcus glanced at his spreadsheet. "Yes, ma'am," said James. Margaret read from her notes in a quiet, steady voice. School tuition. Ruth Simmons. Carla's car. Rent for 4 families. The food pantry. 42 winter coats. Utilities for 6 households. A home health aide for Vernon. 17 families in total. "Yes, ma'am," James said, after each one. "And then," Margaret said, her voice dropping to something almost private. "At the end of the second day, you went to Morrison's music shop on 5th Street. She paused, and you spent $180 on a used upright piano." The room went completely still. Derek set his coffee down. James nodded, slowly. He took a long breath before he spoke. "Lily's mother used to play piano," he said, "before she got sick. She'd play in the evenings after dinner, when the dishes were done and the house was quiet. She knew maybe 4 or 5 songs, but she played them like they were everything." He stopped, steadied himself. "Lily never had the chance to learn. We couldn't afford lessons. We couldn't afford a piano. But every night, every single night, without fail, right before she falls asleep, Lily hums. The same song, over and over. Her mama's song. She doesn't even know she does it. I'll go in to check on her, and she'll be almost asleep, and I'll hear her humming it. Quiet as breathing." He looked at Margaret. "I just thought she should have the chance to play it herself someday, when she's ready, in case she wants to feel close to her mama again." There was silence in that room, not the awkward kind, the sacred kind, the kind that only comes when something true has just been said out loud in a place where people usually only say useful things. Derek was staring at the surface of the table. Marcus had folded his spiral-bound spreadsheet closed. Troy's phone was face down, forgotten, and Margaret Holloway, who had negotiated with senators, who had rebuilt a company from nothing during a recession, who had sat at tables with people far more powerful than anyone in that room and never once flinched. Margaret turned her face away from them all because she was crying, not from sadness, from recognition, because Margaret Holloway had also lost someone. Decades ago, a daughter who had lived only 6 months. A loss she had packed carefully into a box and placed on a very high shelf inside herself, where she did not allow visits. And sitting in that room, listening to a man describe the way his daughter hummed her dead mother's song in her sleep without knowing she was doing it, Margaret felt that box come down from the shelf. All by itself. Without asking permission, James Carter had spent $47,000 and, with 180s of it, on a used piano in a small music shop on 5th Street, he had somehow reached into the most private room of the most powerful woman in that building and knocked gently on the door. "Let me ask you something. Right now, before we go any further, if you had been handed that card and with no rules, no limits, no one watching, what would you have bought first? Think about it honestly, because the answer matters more than you might expect." Margaret stood. She reached into the folder in front of her and produced 4 envelopes. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice fully composed, "the credit cards were a test, but not of your spending habits. The real test The only test that has ever mattered, in any year I have run this, was this. Could you remember, even with everything available to you, that money is only ever worth the lives it reaches? Derek received a senior management role, performance-based, structured, with accountability at every level. Marcus received an invitation to co-invest with the Holloway Foundation, earned access, disciplined capital. Troy received a formal mentorship proposal, pairing him with a communications director who could help him build something lasting instead of something loud. And James opened his envelope slowly. He unfolded the letter inside. Personal stationery. Margaret's own handwriting at the bottom. Mr. Carter, I am establishing a full scholarship fund in your daughter Lily's name, covering her education from today through the completion of her university degree. I am also offering you the position of Director of Community Outreach for the Holloway Foundation, a salary and full benefits package that will ensure you never again need to work a double shift to keep the lights on. This is not a reward for spending the least. It is a recognition of the fact that you already understand, more clearly than anyone I have met in a very long time, what money is actually for. With deep respect, Margaret. James read it once, read it again. And then this big, quiet man, who had not allowed himself to cry in front of another human being for 2 full years, who had held himself together through hospital hallways and funeral arrangements and empty chairs at the dinner table, and every single one of the 1,000 small moments that grief sends your way without warning. James Carter slowly put his face in his hands and wept. Not from pain. Not this time, from the weight of finally being seen. Let that moment sit, a grown man, sitting in a conference room with a billionaire and 3 strangers. Face in his hands, weeping, because someone had finally looked at the life he had been quietly, invisibly living, and told him it was enough. More than enough, that the way he had chosen to move through the world, with no audience and no reward, was not foolish or naive or something to be ashamed of. It was everything. I have thought about James Carter every day since I first heard this story. I think about him in the morning. Before the world gets loud, I think about him when I am tired, when I am impatient, when I am tempted to measure a day by what I accomplished instead of by who I remembered to take care of. I think about the version of James that the world saw. A middle-aged janitor in a school he could not afford to send his own daughter to, driving a car that was 15 years old, wearing a shirt that did not fit anymore because grief had taken 15 pounds off him and he had not had the energy, or perhaps the reason, to replace it. And I think about the version of James that Margaret saw. A man so full of love that even with unlimited access to everything money could ever buy, he could not think of himself first. He literally could not do it. He tried. He stood in that music shop for 40 minutes before he let himself buy one small thing for his little girl. And even that one thing was not really for himself. It was for Lily. And even that was not really just for Lily. It was for her mother. And even that was not just for her mother. It was for the song, the humming, the invisible thread between the living and the dead that love somehow keeps intact, even when everything else has frayed. Do you know what I keep coming back to? The 42 coats, 42 children showing up to school every morning in the cold, 42 little bodies that a teacher had noticed and written down in a notebook and quietly worried about. And James, who had his own daughter in that building, who had his own grief, his own exhaustion, his own life falling quietly apart, James thought of all 42 of them. He thought of 42 strangers before he thought of himself. We spend so much of our lives celebrating the loudest voices, the biggest spenders, the most followed, the most visible. We build monuments to ambition and shrines to success, and we teach our children that the goal is to arrive, to reach the point where money is no longer a problem, where life finally opens up and hands you everything it was, withholding. But James already knew what that opening felt, like not when he got something, when he gave it. Money reveals character, and character is the only inheritance that truly lasts. Somewhere tonight, Maybe right now, as you are watching this, a little girl named Lily is in her bedroom. Maybe she is doing homework. Maybe she is already asleep. And if she is asleep, she is probably humming. That quiet, unconscious hum that is really just her soul trying to stay close to someone it misses. But now there is a piano downstairs. It is not new. It is a little scratched on one side and one of the keys sticks slightly when the room gets damp. It cost $180 from a small music shop on the corner of 5th Street, and the young woman who sold it cried without quite knowing why. But someday, maybe a year from now, maybe 5, Lily Carter is going to sit down at that piano. She is going to find the keys slowly, the way children do, and eventually she is going to find her mother's song, and she is going to feel something she cannot name. Something warm and certain and heartbreaking and sustaining all at once. That feeling will be her father's love. Still here, still warm. Outlasting everything it was ever up against. Call to action comment below. If you had been handed that card, what would you have bought first? Tell us honestly. The answers in our comments are always the best part. Share this video. Send it to someone who needs to believe in good people again. Someone who is tired. Someone who is carrying something heavy right now and could use a reminder that the James Carters of this world still exist. Please subscribe. If you believe that kindness still wins, that character still counts, that love is the thing that outlasts everything else, then you belong here. Hit subscribe. This channel was built for exactly the kind of people this story is about. Thank you for watching, all the way to the end. Thank you for feeling. Thank you for being exactly the kind of person this channel was built for.